What's up, everybody? My name is Matt and welcome back to the channel. And in today's video, we're going to be actually going over a congressional hearing that a crypto expert recently gave on Web 3.0. I thought this video was absolutely awesome, and I'm going to be reacting to it and basically giving you guys my thoughts on how he performed during this testimony. I think it was excellent and really did shine a lot of light on Web 3.0. I think for a lot of average people who might not be crypto savvy or even have any idea what crypto is, I think this guy did a fantastic job at this, and I'm going to give you guys the whole rundown. So if you guys are new, make sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel for more videos each and every day, and let's get right into it, folks. So here is the very beginning of the testimony.
Mr. Brooks, let's step back from digital assets and blockchain for a moment. Let's talk about where the internet was, where it's come to, where it's going, right? We're trying to level set here for policymakers.
So this is very important. What he's actually saying here is because when it comes down to it, the people who are making policy on crypto, for the most part, have absolutely no idea about crypto. And even if you watching this video or me might not consider yourself to be the ultimate expert, the majority of people are much older than me and you and know even less about cryptocurrency. That's definitely a problem.
Originally, the internet was a read-only format, in essence. We're consuming information. And then there's additional layers that we place on. It became much more interactive. But counterintuitively, much more interactive, but much more centralized in Web 1, Web 2. What we're hearing now is Web 3. Policymakers need to understand the nature of Web 3. This is a hearing about a component of Web 3. Now, along those lines, what are the characteristics that defined Web 1 and Web 2?
I want to hear this.
Mr. Mchenry, thank you very much for that question. I think that's critical to understanding what we're all trying to build here. So the characteristic of Web 1, if people remember their original AOL account, was an ability to look in a curated walled garden at a set of content that was not interactive but was presented.
This is extremely true. Before he goes further, I don't want to cut him off here, but this is extremely true. The very beginning, Web 1, very beginning, before you could go and tweet and create videos and this and that and this and that and respond to applications and whatnot, the very beginning, the very early internet was literally read-only.
To you on AOL the way that Time magazine used to show you the articles they wanted you to see inside of their magazine. Just you could see it on a screen. The innovation of Web 2 was that suddenly you could not only read content, but you could also write content. This is when the blogosphere became a big thing. People remember this from the late 90s, the early 2000s. The reason for the centralization of the internet, of course, was that all of that activity was being monetized by a very small number of companies. Facebook, as the chairwoman mentions, Google, and 2 or 3 other companies. What makes Web3 different is the ability to own the actual network.
And this is probably the biggest innovation beyond Web3, and I really do agree with what he's saying here completely. The number one issue with Web2 right now is the fact that there are a very small number of parties who basically have access to all of your files, of storage, of monetization, of controlling the way that content is distributed. You guys know as good as anyone that social media companies are not particularly fair in the way they distribute information, yada yada. So what he is saying here is that the difference with Web3 is that people who actually are investing in these tokens are gaining access to make decisions regarding the future of Web3 applications, where Web2, again, if it's not Google or YouTube or Amazon or Twitter or Facebook or whatever else, that is it. Me and you have no say over what goes on there because they're the ones who have complete control over their applications.
And that's what crypto assets themselves represent, is an ownership stake in an underlying network. So when you hear people talk about, for example, layer 1 tokens, what they mean is this is your reward for providing the ledger maintenance services, the computing power to the network that on Web 1 and 2 was done by Google. Right? So now people in my hometown of Pueblo, Colorado can actually own the Ethereum network, but they can't own the internet. That's owned by Google and a few.
And what he's saying here is also correct in the sense that what people don't understand a lot of times about proof of work when it comes to your actual technology, like my computer sitting on my desk here, is that by offering up your hardware, you are actually doing a very, very small fraction of what Google has warehouses to do, and Amazon has warehouses to do, and Twitter, whoever else, storage facilities, whatnot. You are contributing to the storage and proliferation of information and interacting on apps and things like that by using your own hardware, by offering that up, or by, with proof of stake, you are staking to do the same thing, to keep things in operation, provide liquidity, et cetera, et cetera.
Few other companies. That's what the project of crypto is all about, is allowing people to directly own the networks that have native assets that are supporting it. And that's the nature of decentralization, where the token holders are the people who control the asset,
Okay, so
not
the
Google.
token holders, for our language here on the Hill, those are digital assets, right? Which are the keys to open up the ledger for you to participate, right? So describe to us how those digital assets fit into this internet revolution, Web3.
So the concept is that you have sort of application layer tokens and you have protocol layer tokens. So if I'm an owner of Bitcoin, let's say that I'm a miner of Bitcoin, somebody who actually creates Bitcoin. The Bitcoin is the reward I receive for doing the work to keep the network operational.
Just like I was
that
saying.
allows me to own a piece of the Bitcoin blockchain. Or take Ethereum, which is easier to understand. The Ether token represents an ownership stake in the network, but on top of that network are all kinds of apps that give.
This is every ERC20 token. This is basically any Ethereum level token that is using the Ethereum network to build. There are tons of different networks that do this. Of course, you guys know that the number one issue with Cardano has been getting that to happen, with launching NFTs or whatever, trying to launch some kind of decentralized app or whatnot, or a dApp. So there are tons of different ones. You have Solana. There are tons of different ecosystems. He's talking about ecosystems here that allow you to build on top of them and create your own token for whatever reason. This is the essential difference between coins and tokens. You have a coin like Ethereum, and then you have other tokens, let's say Decentraland, an ERC20 or an Ethereum token.
Built on the network, much like the apps on your phone depend on the underlying network existing that lets
Great
the phone
analogy.
operate. And so people will make judgments about which network is likely to win, and they will invest in the tokens in that network much the same way you might invest in Google stock because you think Google is going to scale access to the original internet. The difference being here, you can vote on what happens in the future of a proof of stake network, for example. You can get rewarded through a proof of work token for maintaining a ledger on something like Bitcoin. But the real message here is that what happens on the decentralized internet is decided by the investors, versus what happens on the main internet is decided by Twitter, Facebook, Google, and a small number.
And this is really the biggest benefit of Web3 that I love more than anything, which is why I've chosen to invest a little bit in Web3, is because really, when it comes down to it, I do trust the average person. I trust just a regular guy to make a better decision for the future of a network than I would, someone who is, either profiting from it or a very small team, maybe who, has a very shared, limited set of opinions. I trust a wider spread of people to make a more fair decision than just a very small company in some headquarters down at a, CEO's office or something.
Number of other companies.
Okay, so getting this layer on digital assets right, for Congress to understand this, everything is built upon that on-ramp to this new internet. So very important for us to be sensitive to how this develops and any actions we take in terms of laws and updating laws to incorporate these new technologies.
Yeah, Mr. Mchenry couldn't agree more, and I think when you hear about all of the problems of different big tech companies, the importance of an owner-controlled network becomes clear.
Exactly.
Okay. Owner-controlled network rather than a cooperative, right? And
Yes.
thinking in those terms.
Absolutely.
Right? So if you're not a part of management, you're not making a decision in Web 2. If you are a participant in the network, you're cooperating in the making of those decisions.
Exactly right.
Okay. So
That is really, to me, one of the biggest things about Web3 as well, is that you don't have to be a millionaire. You don't even have to be wealthy to have some level of influence over Web3. Now, I don't know what Web3 coin out there is going to be the winner per se. There are tons of different ones. Quant is a very big one. There are tons of different Web3. ICP is another very big Web 3.0 token out there. And it's really hard to say which one will win per se, but finding one that allows the average guy to participate and have influence is probably going to be one of the winners.
I ask this not to be insulting to the panel, but to have a level set here so we have an understanding of what we're talking about. This is not simply about you on this panel. It is about trillions of dollars of assets that did not exist before Satoshi wrote his white paper 13 years ago. It's about $3 trillion in notional value at this stage around the development of a whole new range, a whole new suite of technology that will be developed across the globe, whether or not the United States embraces it and wants to compete, or if it's pushed offshore. So
that's really the biggest argument about the United States that he is creating here, is the fact that we cannot stop Web 3.0 in any way, shape, or form. It's whether or not the U.S. will embrace it like he's suggesting, or will be resistant to it and not be able to reap the rewards of a thriving industry like this.
Policymakers, we need to understand what we're talking about here. This is a small panel, important as you may be, a small panel about the discussion about Web 3. And so with that, Madam Chair, thank you.
So yeah, all around, he did a really good job. I thought this made Web 3.0 certainly easier to digest for the average person, even myself. I mean, it really does. It's nice hearing someone simplify something like that sometimes, and gives you a little bit more faith in your own convictions, perhaps. So with that being said, I hope you guys have enjoyed the video. Definitely let me know down below in the comments, what you thought about his statements, whether or not you guys agree, and whether or not you guys agree with my analysis. And I'll catch you guys on the next video. Peace.